The man was mowing the lawn when he discovered the mower couldn't handle small trees. It even left the blade with numerous nicks. Seeing this, he found a disc brake rotor, planning to modify the mower thoroughly. First, he welded a gear to the center of the disc brake rotor, carefully polishing the weld points between the gear and the rotor. Next, he placed the smooth rotor onto a drill press to drill a hole in the center of the rotor, allowing it to be mounted onto the mower. Afterward, he picked up an angle grinder and ground along the edge of the rotor, making it sharper and more even. Since the rotor itself couldn't directly cut, he marked slanted lines along the edge with a marker, then used the angle grinder to cut along the lines, gradually forming clear serrated teeth along the rotor's edge. To ensure the sharpness of each tooth, he used a grinder to sharpen the tip of each tooth, until achieving the desired effect. Next, he removed the old blade, and installed the newly modified circular blade onto the mower. To enhance safety during use, he cut some PVC pipes, precisely cutting them to the required length. After cutting, he heated the PVC pipes with a heat gun. Once softened, he pressed the pipes flat, then connected these flattened pipes, forming a grid structure. At each connection point of the grid, he drilled holes and secured them firmly with rivets. He then reheated the entire PVC grid with a heat gun, using a metal can to bend the plastic grid, shaping the plastic grid into a semicircular protective cover. This way, when using the mower, the protective cover could act as a barrier. He then mounted the entire cover onto the front of the mower's handle, starting the modified mower. Wherever the mower passed, grass was cut down as if by magic. Not only that, cutting saplings was effortless. So what do you think of his creativity? Out of 10, what score would you give him? This man is absolutely a genius. He cuts the bamboo into equal lengths. After a series of intricate processing steps on the cut bamboo tubes, the resulting products make the bamboo's value soar by several times. And these products are something every household can use. Watching the process, you realize this is how it's done. Before starting, he first takes the long bamboo and places it on a cutting machine for preliminary cuts based on the required length. He cuts the bamboo into equal-sized tubes along the bamboo nodes. The bamboo nodes at each end are removed to simplify further processing. Once all the cuts are completed, you can see that each bamboo tube has 2 nodes. Next, they are transferred to a machine for hollowing. As the machine starts, the rotating tool mills out the inside nodes, and at the same time, the inner walls are evenly smooth. This way, all bamboo tubes are fully hollowed. After they pass onto a conveyor belt and a slit is cut, the materials are now ready. Then he stacks the bamboo tubes neatly on a metal rack, and pushes them into a cylindrical high-pressure furnace. Through sealed high-pressure and high-temperature treatment, the bamboo tubes undergo an essential process, which is carbonization to remove moisture and sugars, and to fully soften the fibers. After carbonization, the bamboo tubes turn from green to charred black. This state is perfect for pressing and straightening. Without delay, they're placed on a rolling machine. Under repeated rolling from the machine, the bamboo gradually transforms from a tube into a flat bamboo board. But this is just the first step of the process. Next, they're stacked and thoroughly dried. The drying chamber is heated by burning scraps continuously. After 3 days of drying, the material structure stabilizes, preventing warping and cracking. Now, they can be cut into smaller pieces as needed. These wood strips being processed are a key component of the product. They act as a layer between 2 bamboo boards. After cutting them into even small strips, he brushes a layer of eco-friendly glue on the bamboo boards. Then, he lays the wooden strips closely on top, bonding them together. Once layered and covered with another bamboo board, they're secured with tape, creating a structure that looks like a sandwich. Since there are still gaps between the materials, to ensure a tight, durable bond, they are then placed in a press. Under repeated pressure, they gradually fuse together. At this point, the main structure of the product has formed. Now, looking at this, can you guess what he's making? It's a cutting board made of bamboo, but it's still in its rough form. There are still many crucial steps left before it's complete. The first step in finishing is to sand down the rough top and bottom surfaces until smooth. As for the uneven edges, they are first fixed to a machine, then trimmed into straight edges and rounded corners. After trimming, a bridge-shaped hole is drilled into one end of the board. Now, the cutting board is one step away from completion. The final step is polishing the surface to remove tiny burrs. Under his skilled hands, the polishing is complete, and he applies a layer of olive oil as a protective finish. Now, this bamboo cutting board is complete. So, what do you think of his creativity? This man is definitely a genius. He actually used metal barrels to make wash basins, selling thousands of them every day. First, using a hammer, he separates the barrel's body from its lid. Gradually, the metal sheet is thinned down like a piece of paper. This same process creates multiple required materials. The separated lid and base of the barrel become the main components for the iron basin. He starts by drawing a circle with a compass. Then, step by step, he hammers away until it's cut and separated. Meanwhile, the barrel's intact thin sheets are cut into small squares using a lathe. The machine then grinds off the extra edges to shape it into a circle. With the help of machinery, production output in a day is far faster than hammering by hand. Then these circular metal sheets are rolled flat, with a rolling press to remove creases. He burns them over charcoal fire, to scrub off leftover paint and impurities from the surface. With the help of river sand, they're thoroughly cleaned. After all these steps, the pieces are transferred to the pressing workshop for shaping. Under a stamping machine, the circular metal sheets gradually form a curved basin shape, rotating and hammering along the way. With multiple sheets in use, the edges turn out rough, so each one requires fine hammering to get the right shape. Of course, different machines can make basins for various uses. Using a pry bar, he gradually compresses and tightens each basin. What looks simple is actually a true test of his skill. The quality of the basin depends entirely on each detail of the process. And with that, the wash basin made from a recycled metal barrel is complete. So what do you think of his creativity? Out of 10 points, how many would you give him? This man is definitely a genius. He picked up a discarded oil drum, sealed one end tightly by welding it shut, then cut a precise rectangular opening on the side, fitted another matching iron plate, pressed it flush with the edges and lightly welded it in place, flipped it upright into a vertical position, cut a small iron box from square tubing, used a marker to align and measure the opening for cutting, marked 8 straight lines across the middle, cut out 4 slender slots along those lines, positioned square tubes accordingly, welded them securely in place, prepared a roll of copper tubing, fixed it in the center using clips, pulled and wrapped it evenly layer by layer, secured it at the top with clips as well, straightened the excess tubing at the end, fetched an old empty oil drum, laid it down and cut one large and one small rectangular opening on its side, drilled screws around the midsection, inserted an iron plate resting on the protruding screws, cut out the necessary openings, punched 2 circular holes on one side as reserves, placed the copper-wrapped core precisely in the center, welded the surrounding edges tightly with iron plates, sealed the top lid with solid welding, smoothed and polished the welding marks, added a round pipe to the top opening, drilled a total of 15 circular holes on the front, inserted steel pipes matching the size of the holes. While half the basic structure seemed complete, the back needed an exhaust fan, the front needed hinges and a handy little handle, connected threaded adapters to the copper tubing, installed 4 flexible caster wheels on the base. Thus, this innovative multifunctional wood-burning heater, crafted from a repurposed oil drum, was skillfully completed with simplicity and perfection. To use it, simply grab firewood from the lower compartment, light it on the top for warmth, cook meals, boil soup, and heat water simultaneously. So, what do you think of his creativity? Out of 10, how many points would you give him? This man is absolutely a genius. He found cycling to work very exhausting. Then he noticed a spare flywheel at home. A flash of inspiration hit him, and he came up with a great idea. First, he used a ruler to evenly mark 3 equal points on the flywheel. Then he cut the flywheel along the markings. The middle part was also cut. This resulted in 3 identical iron fan-shaped pieces. Next, he took out a fan blade. His plan was to weld these 3 pieces onto the fan blade, so he measured the size and cut 3 flat iron pieces. Then he placed the flat irons for alignment and marked the points. He drilled holes according to the markings. After a flurry of sparks and welding, the modified flywheel was ready. He installed a steel shaft in the center of the flywheel, added 2 bearings to each side of the shaft. Then he placed the flywheel on the bicycle to check the position. Once confirmed, he removed the rear wheel of the bicycle and cut off the entire rear frame. Next, he welded the front half of the bicycle onto a frame for stability. Then he aligned the flywheel, cut and shaped some iron pipes, and welded them onto the bicycle frame. After the welding, he reattached the original rear wheel frame. For the upper section, he cut, shaped, and bent a square pipe for assembly and fixation. Now the new frame was welded and ready. He installed a pulley on the rear wheel, mounted it onto the frame, and looped the other end of the belt around the flywheel. At this point, he adjusted the tension and fixed the flywheel in place. For riding safety, he welded 2 processed square pipes on each side of the flywheel as guards. Then he installed the chainring and pedals. He mounted 2 chainring gears onto an axle, and welded the gear set onto the steel frame of the rear wheel. Finally, he installed the chain, and sprayed the flywheel with anti-rust paint. Thus, a flywheel-assisted bicycle was complete. Eagerly, he hopped on for a test ride. You can see that by pedaling to rotate the flywheel, the gears adjust the speed, making cycling much easier. So, what do you think of his creativity? On a scale of 10, how would you rate him? This man is definitely a genius. He started by inserting a plastic bucket into the drain, then built a ring of bricks around the edge, laying enough bricks to form a sturdy border, and filling the gaps with mortar, pressing and smoothing it down to create a solid base for the structure. Using the bucket as a central guide, he built a tightly stacked circular wall, layering it 360 degrees around. Once the mortar was set and the structure was firm, he removed the bucket, now fully used to its purpose. Next, he found 3 clean, used car tires, stacked them one by one, securing them with screws, and placed them on the brick base. At the pre-drilled hole in the tire, he installed a faucet and valve, securing them in place. Next to it, he set up space for a cleaning solution dispenser for regular use. Then he attached an elbow joint point, allowing him to connect a short PVC pipe segment. Using clamps, he fitted a hose of matching diameter, ensuring a secure, tight fit. The other end of the hose ran from inside through the bottom tire, connecting it to the water inlet valve. Lastly, he applied glue and added a stainless steel sink basin. With that, his creatively crafted, unique wash basin was complete. So, what do you think of his idea? Out of 10, how would you rate his creativity? This man is definitely a genius. Rusty tools undergo his incredible modifications, and they come out looking brand new and vibrant. It's absolutely amazing. He unscrews bolts and removes the support frame, using a wrench to loosen the top nut, takes out the bolt and detaches the blade section of the tool. The surface is covered in thick layers of rust. He first uses a wire brush to scrub back and forth, quickly cleaning off the top layer of rust, then removes the small wooden ball at the handle's end, places it in a plastic container, pours an 82-year-old cola until it's fully submerged. Other metal parts are also added to the container, starting the soaking process. He continues disassembling other parts. Since the nuts at the base are completely rusted in place, he uses a power drill to grind down and pierce the bolt caps. This allows him to remove the two metal support rods. A light tap on the base plate easily releases the embedded bolts. These are then placed into a machine for sandblasting, slowly removing the outer layers to reveal the original wood grain. The small wooden ball also gets a thorough cleaning. After sandblasting, he sands down edges, smoothing corners until they reach a refined finish, applies a coat of wood wax oil to the surface, enhancing the grain and providing protection, secures the small wooden ball back in place, fills cracks with epoxy resin, ensuring every gap is completely sealed. Once it hardens and sets, it's shaved and sanded down, removing excess and restoring a smooth rounded texture, followed by a coat of wax oil. Next, he retrieves the soaked metal parts, brushes them again with a wire brush, removing remaining surface rust before air drying. They are placed back into the sandblasting machine. After this step, the parts are free of impurities, revealing a raw metallic finish. He sands each piece once more for finer detailing, also reworks the blade edges, sharpening and polishing them to perfection. Finally, assembly begins. New bolts are inserted into their original positions and tightened with nuts. The blade section is installed and the support frame secured. The transformation is now complete. So what do you think of his craftsmanship? Out of 10, how would you rate his work? This man is undoubtedly a genius. He used a gray knife to carve deep grooves along the edge of the metal mesh, simultaneously dug out the soil within the square marking lines with a hoe, cleared the loosened soil using a wheelbarrow and a plastic basin, revealing a square-shaped depression. Then he used a trowel to smooth the surface of the pit. This method partially filled in the tiny pores of the pit walls to reduce water seepage. He then smoothed the cement inside the pit, laid a layer of metal mesh over the cement to enhance its structural strength. He continued pouring cement mortar into the pit, while spreading the cement evenly with a trowel. Next, he molded the cement surface into two circles, and placed cylindrical metal meshes over them, then built bricks along the lower part of the pit walls. With his skilled craftsmanship, the three-layered brick pool gradually took shape. He then evenly applied cement by hand over the circular metal mesh, firmly encasing the mesh, shaping two sturdy cement barrels. As he continuously worked, the cement barrels gradually took form. To ensure the pool's waterproof quality, and to increase its durability, he evenly coated the pool walls with a layer of cement mortar, carefully polished the surface with foam boards, to achieve a smooth, uniform finish. Then he laid a sloping row of bricks around the pool's edge, gradually creating a natural slope, sprinkled a layer of sand over the bricks, and laid another layer of metal mesh on the slope. Using a trowel, he evenly spread cement mortar over the mesh surface. On the side of the cement barrels and the walls, he drew patterns of winding tree roots, and applied a layer of cement mortar along the lines. To enhance the texture's realism, he fixed broken bricks into the cement, while spreading another layer of cement mortar on the barrel surface, completely covering it with mortar and brick fragments. Then used tools to carve tree bark textures on the barrel surface, achieving a perfect natural effect. At the opening of the filtration pool, he fixed a pipe with cement, allowing filtered water to flow to the next pool. He proceeded to apply waterproof paint on the outer side of the fish pond, and painted corresponding colors on the tree roots and filtration pool. He then cleared the banana plants from the fish pond, thoroughly cleaned the pool, placed a water pump at the bottom of the fish pond, wrapped the filter cotton and pipe outlet with a towel, and set it at the bottom of the filter. Then added filtration materials, while placing broken bricks in the other filtration pool. Finally, he added stones and pebbles to the fish pond as decorations, thus completing the entire filtered fish pond. So, what do you think of his creativity? Out of 10 points, how much would you rate his work? This man is undeniably a genius. Using ordinary glass, he creates exquisite jewelry worth a fortune. He softens the glass with fire, then adds more glass fragments to expand the shape after firing, repeating the process multiple times until the glass can be pulled into threads. And only when the color shifts from yellow to reddish can it be removed for further shaping. One hand holds the iron rod to rotate it, the other uses a press to form a pointed tip. Then he grips one end with pliers and pulls hard, while the glass remains pliable. He swiftly stretches it into a glass thread to prevent premature hardening. He simultaneously simultaneously heats it with fire. These glass rods are the key material. After a brief cooling period, he breaks the glass rods to control their length, preparing for the next steps. First, he clamps one rod with pliers, reheats it to soften. Then, using an iron rod as the center, wraps the glass layer by layer, initially shaping it into a sphere. To achieve a smoother finish, he uses a press to refine the glass ball, making it as close to a perfect sphere as possible, considering the aesthetics of the glass ball. At this stage, he mixes other colors of glass to add rich patterns on the surface. The designs are unrestricted. He can create patterns based on personal preference. As he finishes the final touches, the glass ball takes its general shape, continuing to fire it. He fuses the raised patterns into the main body. Afterward, he removes the iron rod and polishes it to form a hole. Thus, a stunning glass bead is completed. To enhance its texture, he further polishes and smooths out minor imperfections, giving it an exquisite shine. Simply thread it with a cord, and it's ready to wear as jewelry. So, what do you think of his creativity? The man is undeniably a genius. He extracts gold from circuit boards. This small workshop at first glance requires removing all components from the circuit boards. These metal components are coated with a layer of gold, so he gathers all the disassembled metal parts, and these large pits are actually furnaces. He places the collected metal parts into the furnace, then lines the furnace's edge with heavy wood, and ignites it for smelting. To achieve maximum furnace temperature, he uses a blower to increase melting efficiency. After hours of smelting, the metal parts turn into liquid. Then he removes impurities one by one from the liquid to obtain purer molten gold. Once smelting is complete, he removes the wood, and the red-hot center is the end product of smelting. Of course, this large chunk isn't all gold. After it cools, he uses a hammer to break it apart, resulting in a light yellow disc. He places the disc in water to fully cool it. Then he puts it into a metal basin and adds a mysterious liquid. Soon the liquid and disc start a chemical reaction. After some time dissolving, the liquid turns deep blue. At this point, he pours out the liquid, and the chunk he put in has completely dissolved, forming fine particles. The mysterious liquid is actually nitric acid. After multiple rounds of dissolving and filtering, the particles become a sand-like texture. He covers them with a layer of tin foil, then places it over charcoal to bake and heat, to fully remove moisture from the sand. What's left appears like mud, but is actually the raw form of refined gold. He puts this sponge gold into a dry pan, and places it back on charcoal to heat again, allowing the sponge gold to solidify, revealing the final form of gold. During this process, he adds a bit of borax to increase the purity of the gold. So what do you think of his craftsmanship? Out of 10, how would you rate his skill? This man is definitely a genius. On his first day, he asked for a monthly salary of $20,000. The boss unhesitatingly took him to the construction site. If he could perfectly align these two railings, of different heights and misaligned positions, even a $30,000 salary wouldn't be a problem. After hearing this, he immediately marked the required length on the steel bar he'd just bent. Using an A4 sheet, he wrapped it to make an imprint, to accurately measure the diameter of the stainless steel pipe. He then divided it into quarters, marking every 5 centimeters, and expanded the center sections outward by 1 centimeter, to wrap neatly around the pipe's exterior. Using these points, he made marks in sequence with a marker. Meanwhile, he used a square tube for precision, to trace straight lines from these points along the top edge. Then found the 15 centimeter mark, and marked 15 points, spaced 1 centimeter apart. He repeated this process for the remaining lines, so he could use the center line as a reference, connecting both sides with 1 centimeter offsets. Notice each specific step he's taking with precision, until he carefully cut each opening in sequence. Then at every 8 centimeter mark, he repeated the process with careful dot markings, and made additional cuts for the flexible openings. Next, he gently bent each segment, revealing the basic structure instantly. Once welded with seamless precision and smoothly polished, the two misaligned railings of different heights were seamlessly and ingeniously connected before everyone. So what do you think of his creativity? If you were the boss, would you offer him $30,000? This man is absolutely a genius. You can see him heating a metal ring until it glows, and fitting it over a wooden wheel, hammering and wrapping it tightly. Turns out he's making a carriage wheel. He first cuts out a circular wooden block, then shifts it to a lathe for turning, creating a rounded profile with tapered ends. He marks out 4 equal sections in the middle, and sands it down until perfectly smooth. Using a drill, he creates a central hole in the wooden block. Then, with a homemade compass, he draws 4 evenly spaced lines. Following these marks, he drills more holes, creating an alternating pattern of raised and lowered holes. With some hammering, he shapes them into squares, making it easier to fit in spokes later. With limited tools, he works with both hands and feet. He crafts the spokes using a traditional jointing method, cutting off excess wood from each marked block, so they fit snugly into the circular holes. He repeats this process to make multiple spokes. After 20 minutes of sanding and adjusting, the basic shape starts to take form. It looks much like a ship's rudder. Naturally, the outer wheel ring needs similar assembly. The process seems simple, but precise measurements are critical. Even a slight miscalculation could make the wheel unstable when rolling, cutting, drilling, hammering, and assembling. Each step flows seamlessly into the next, until the hammering is finally done. He smooths out the surface of the 5 curved wooden panels, making the outer contour of the wheel exceptionally smooth. Of course, a purely wooden wheel wouldn't last long in use, so he adds the heated metal ring for durability. With this metal ring, the wheel can last for years. Minor repairs only require replacing or fixing the metal ring. As the ring is welded into a circular shape, it's ready to attach. He heats it until red hot, then quickly places it over the wooden wheel. Using a crowbar and hammer, he fits it tightly. The thermal expansion and contraction lock it securely in place. This method binds the wood and metal ring as one solid piece. After smoothing out any uneven metal sections, the wooden and steel carriage wheel is now complete. So, what do you think of his craftsmanship? Out of a score of 10, how much would you rate him? This man is absolutely a genius. He buries an oversized water pipe in a ditch, and covers it with soil and sand, then fills the surface with a layer of concrete gravel. Once spread and smoothed out, it forms an independent platform. After the cement dries and hardens, he begins laying bricks along the center of the platform. Before long, he builds an arched wall. When the wall reaches a height of 1 meter, he leaves a gap in the center of the wall, and applies a layer of cement mortar to both sides. Once the cement dries and hardens, he places a row of bent iron wires on top of the wall, and adds supporting templates on both sides, reinforcing it with rebar for structural integrity, then fills and smooths it out with cement mortar. This creates a semi-arched platform at the top of the wall. Once the surface completely hardens, he removes the templates, and carves out a groove along one side of the wall. This groove needs to run through the wall. Then he inserts a large water pipe into the middle. At the downstream end of the ditch, he fixes a right-angle pipe, connecting the two with a cement template. To ensure stability, he also lays a row of red bricks at the bottom. Next, he builds a circle of red bricks along the shape of the cement template, creating a winding spiral structure. He only needs to build 2 layers of bricks for height. On the other side of the water pipe, he remembers to leave a square gap, so that this position can connect through. After the cement dries and hardens, he paints the surface of the wall as decoration. Next, he installs a motor at the pre-buried water pipe location, secures a gate on the square gap, and adds an automatic lifting mechanism. Finally, he installs a row of railings at the top of the wall. Thus, a small hydropower station is complete. As the gate slowly rises, the powerful water flow can generate kinetic energy for downstream electricity. So, what do you think of his creativity? Out of 10, how would you rate him? This man is definitely a genius. He actually used balloons and matches to make a fire-starting tool for survival in the wild. It's portable, waterproof, and most importantly, it's highly effective at igniting wood. First, he trimmed the matchstick heads and the strikers on both sides with scissors. After cutting them into small strips, he took a soda bottle and cut the bottle into plastic strips about the same size as the strikers, but made them slightly longer. Then he folded everything in half, wrapping the striker around the plastic strip. At this point, he tied a knot to make a loop. Then he looped the string around the center to create a pull ring. Next, he grouped 6 matches into 2 sets of 3, sandwiched the striker around them and bound them with tape. Now it was time to test it. A gentle pull on the ring could light the matches. This showed the ignition mechanism worked, but it still wasn't ready for use in harsh conditions, so he took some balloons and placed the bound matches inside a balloon. Then he wrapped the balloon with 2 pieces of filter cotton and tied it securely with string. Afterward, he dripped wax onto a metal sheet, placed a plastic tube on top to serve as a mold, because the next step was to place the match bundle wrapped in filter cotton into the mold, and poured melted petroleum jelly into the mold, making sure the filter cotton was fully soaked. After it cooled slightly, he removed it. At this point, it looked like a capsule. He repeated this process to make more. Then he stretched open another balloon by hand and placed the capsule inside. Once it was inside, he sealed the balloon with string, and with that, the fire-starting tool made from balloons and matches was complete. He stored the finished tool in a metal box. Not only is it easy to carry, but even if it falls in water, it can still be ignited. The key is that the petroleum-soaked filter cotton burns much longer. So, what do you think of his creativity? Out of a full score of 10, how much would you rate him? The man is undeniably a genius. He repeatedly folds a sheet of wire mesh, creating 8 pieces of this material. Then he encloses them with a steel frame, welding it securely with a cover plate. It's hard to believe such a simple process could forge an artwork that sells for an astounding $50,000. He starts by adding a vent hole, then welds a suitable handle with rebar, placing it in a furnace for roasting. Once it's glowing red on all sides, he begins hammering it on a hydraulic press. Through this burning and hammering, he forges the steel mesh structure into a single piece, effectively increasing the steel stiffness and hardness. With continued hammering by the hydraulic press, impurities gradually peel away from the surface. Ultimately, he produces a steel billet suitable for crafting fine artwork. At this point, he divides it into 3 sections, removing the forged wire mesh structure inside. Its transformed look is unrecognizable from its original state, displaying intricate, interwoven textures. He then divides this iron piece into 3 sections, cuts them into smaller pieces, and welds 2 of the sections together as one. Next, he places it back into the furnace for another heating session. While heating, he sprinkles borax across across the surface. This enhances the purity of the steel during subsequent hammering. After countless hammer strikes, he can mold it into the desired shape. He then trims off the excess based on the required design. Using an angle grinder, he polishes the curve to perfection. Before a third round of heating, after the third heating, he uses manual hammering techniques, a touch that machines can never fully replicate. Adjusting slight curvature details requires precise force and angles to create a flawless piece of art. Afterward, he shapes the handle with the hydraulic press. On the other end of the handle, he hammers one side with the press to achieve a slanted effect. With the main structure complete, he begins the first round of polishing, smoothing the surface, and placing it in the furnace for another roasting. This is an ancient method for increasing hardness. After roasting, it's quenched in a special solution, making the steel even harder. Finally, he performs a second, finer polishing, with various polishing tools enhancing every detail. This exquisite artwork finally reveals its mysterious beauty. Thus, a Damascus knife crafted from steel mesh is complete, and it has sold for a 5-figure price. So, what do you think of his creativity? Out of 10, how would you rate his skill? This man is undeniably a genius. Who would have thought that even a cow femur, despised even by dogs, could be transformed into a valuable piece of craftsmanship? First, he cuts the salvaged cow femur in half, splitting it into 2 parts, then uses an angle grinder to polish the surface, making it smooth. This process is repeated multiple times, until the surface becomes impeccably sleek and delicate. Next, he cuts a steel strip to match the width of the femur, and shapes its outline using an angle grinder. After meticulous grinding and cutting, it takes the shape of a dagger. At this point, can you guess what he's crafting? In fact, he's creating a unique custom dagger. He places the finished blade into a charcoal fire for heating, enhancing the toughness of the steel, then quenches it to increase the dagger's hardness. Afterward, he assembles it with a handle made from the cow femur, and so, a distinctively styled bone-handled knife is completed. Its exterior is pure white, and the blade is razor-sharp. So, what do you think of his creativity? On a scale of 10, how many points would you give him? This man is definitely a genius. He first arranged the staples in a plum blossom shape, then placed them in a metal box, adding a large amount of carbon steel inside. After covering it, he welded the lid securely. With this simple process, he can forge exquisite artworks worth $500,000. He first welded a handle on top, then placed it in a furnace to bake, until it turned golden brown on both sides. He then set it on a rectangular hydraulic press to start forging. With continuous hammering, the impurities within the material are pressed out, and separate from the surface. This way, the height and hardness of the raw material can be enhanced. After a day of forging, he obtained 2 pieces of special black iron. He first split the black iron in half, and used a special grinder to smooth the surface. At this point, exquisite patterns emerged from the cut center. He welded a small section to a rebar, and placed it in the furnace to bake. Waiting for it to turn bright red, he sprinkled a large amount of borax on the surface. Borax has a purifying effect to enhance the rigidity of the material during the subsequent forging process. During the next round of forging, many more impurities were still pressed out. After the basic shape was forged, he fixed it in a bench vise, and polished it with a grinder. Then he placed it back in the furnace to bake. This made the subsequent processing easier and faster. Next, he secured it in the bench vise, and used all his strength to rotate it. After finishing, he obtained a twisted steel structure. At this point, the man hesitated not at all and divided it into 3 parts. The thicker middle section would serve as raw material for further processing. After reforging, he pressed it on a hydraulic machine to create a long and thin handle. After processing the steel, its basic shape finally emerged. Then the man fired it up, and placed it in a special liquid for quenching, further increasing the steel's hardness and rigidity. Once done, he began polishing the work. Finally, he soaked it in a special liquid, and exquisite patterns gradually appeared. Thus, a dagger made from staples was successfully completed. It could be sold for an exorbitant price of $50,000. So what do you think of his creativity? On a scale of 10, how many points would you give him? The girl's bike chain kept slipping during her ride. Frustrated and exhausted, she came home, threw the bike to her boyfriend, told him if he didn't fix it today, it was over. The man immediately came up with an idea. He began by removing the lawnmower's connecting rod, then unscrewed the fixed bolts, and took off the front assembly of the connection plate. Now it was time to modify this assembly. Cutting off the excess front part, he brought in a connecting piece, and welded it together with the gear plate. Of course, he cleaned off any welding residue, aiming for this result. He then reconnected the modified part to the engine, making sure to reinforce the bolts tightly. Next, he brought in a pre-made support frame, marked the bottom, drilled holes and mounted it onto the engine. After securing everything, he flipped the bike over, unscrewed and removed the back wheel, then took off the disc sand plate. Using a cutting tool, he removed the outer ring, only keeping the inner part. Then he bolted it together with a gear plate, ensuring the screws were tightly fastened. Once finished, he connected it with the back wheel as one piece, then reinstalled the back wheel, and reattached the brake assembly he had taken off earlier. Now it was time to bring over the modified engine, positioned it and used it chain to link it to the back wheel, then fully welded and reinforced the engine base to the bike frame. He also properly installed the brake cable. Finally, he started the engine. The back wheel spun rapidly, and thus, the custom-built powered bicycle was complete. Eagerly, he hopped on, headed outdoors for a real test. The bike sped quickly down the path. Seeing this, his girlfriend broke into a bright smile. So, what do you think of his idea? Out of 10, how many points would you give him?
The duvet techniques that professional organizers will never tell you. 1. Spread the duvet cover inside out on the bed. Lay the duvet flat on the duvet cover. Then, grab 2 corners and fold them into a triangle. Fold both sides towards the center. Roll it up from the pointed end. Next, turn the duvet cover inside out. Open the duvet and easily put it on. 2. Quick sheet folding. Grab point A of the sheet with your left hand. Grab point B with your right hand. Pull it over and grab point C. Shake it out, and you can quickly fold sheets of any size. 3. Lay the duvet flat. Fold one side in a bit. Fold both sides like shown in the video. Smooth it out, then fold it in towards the center twice. Flip over the pocket that you just folded. This way, the duvet stays neat and doesn't unfold. It also saves space. 4. Does your sheet get all messy after you sleep on it? Simply tuck the sheet at the foot of the bed under the mattress first. Then, lift the sheet at the mattress end and tuck the foot in. Finally, tuck the whole sheet under the mattress. Done. Isn't it simple? 5. Fold the bath towel flat. Fold the corners inward. Lift from the center and fold in half. Then, roll it up. Finally, tuck the small corner into the inner fold. Your round and neat bath towel is now organized. Follow me for more daily life tips.
This man is absolutely a genius, turning these worthless bamboo tubes into exquisite crafts. He held his tools, dipped them in paint, marked equidistant points around the bamboo's cut edge, then used a scraper to smooth the rough edges on the other side, ensuring the bamboo strips cut later would have uniform dimensions. Next, he aligned the tools with the markings, split the bamboo tube in half, and continued dividing it into quarters, eighths, and finally sixteenths. This was just the beginning, since the next steps required finer work. He used machines for precision, further splitting each bamboo piece into narrower strips. This avoided manual errors. To maximize the bamboo's performance, he refined and thinned them down, reducing the thickness to just a few millimeters. Grabbing a handful of strips from the pile, he pressed them flat under a stone slab, measured the width of each strip with a ruler. If they didn't meet the standard, he used the machine to trim the excess edges, striving for exceptional precision. Only when the strips reached near perfect similarity did he bundle them together. Before weaving, he soaked the bamboo in water, allowing the dry bamboo to regain moisture, restoring its flexibility. Then he split the bamboo strips into thinner slivers just fractions of a millimeter thick. He sorted the slivers in his hands, tied and fixed them at the center, and hung them indoors to air dry naturally. Taking a small handful of slivers, he fanned them open from the base with his fingers, then wove another sliver horizontally through the middle, creating crossing points. By weaving repeatedly back and forth, he eventually crafted the base frame. Following the marked lines, he wove the strips one by one, until they extended to a length of several meters, rolling them up into a bamboo mat-like sheet. Because the dimensions were too narrow, he cut them into rectangular pieces, placed them under a mold and iron block, trimmed the excess edges under the machine, transforming them into neat rectangular bamboo boards. Finally, he applied prepared lacquer, coating the edges of the woven board, to seal and smooth the borders. For the surface, he brushed on natural resin extracted from lacquer trees. Once both sides were treated, he left the lacquer to dry naturally. These could then be turned into various crafts. So, what do you think of his craftsmanship? On a scale of 10, how would you rate him?
Life hacks I only discovered halfway through my life. 1. Loose hair tie. Blow it with a hairdryer and it'll shrink back. 2. Stick a piece of tissue paper on a plug and insert it into the socket. Now your phone doesn't have to lie on the ground while charging. 3. Cross 2 hangers to hold up clothes. Even strong winds won't blow them off. 4. Use a hanger to easily tie balloons. No more sore fingers from tying knots. 5. Use a bottle cap to squeeze out sauce packets. It's clean, thorough, and mess-free. The included fork doubles as a noodle steaming tool. 6. Use a toothpick to prop open the lid of a pot. It makes draining water easier. 7. Cut a sponge into strips. Secure it with rubber bands. Insert chopsticks on both sides. Now you have a DIY cup cleaning tool for free. 8. A single hanger can't hold a bath towel. Try hanging the ends on the hanger's shoulders. This improves ventilation and speeds up drying. 9. Bend both sides of a hanger. Pull open the bottom. Add a bag and you've got a wall-mounted trash bin. Convenient and practical. 10. Traveling with lots of luggage? A bottle can help ease the load. Follow me for daily life hacks.
This man is absolutely a genius. He cuts discarded copper wire into segments, puts them into a furnace to melt into liquid. At this point, he adds tin to extend the copper's durability and performance. Once fully melted, pours the liquid into a prepared mold, waits for it to cool and solidify, removes the cast block, washes it with a high-pressure water jet until it's spotlessly clean, then finds a wooden board and marks it on the surface. Following the marked lines, cuts an irregularly shaped wood piece, further cuts and sands it down. The shaped board fits into a wooden frame for molding, fills the interior with molding sand and packs it firmly, seals the bottom with another wood board, flips it over and places another frame on the back, fills it with molding sand the same way, leaving a pouring channel beforehand. After completing everything, he separates the mold, removes the template that was filled earlier, places some small components in the setup, completes the casting preparation, then pours molten brass into it. The clean cast block still needs more processing, cuts away any excess material first, then polishes and smooths the surface, drills the necessary holes, moves on to another part of the assembly, cuts and segments it into block-like models, marks an even scale on the surface, cuts grooves along the marked lines. When this part is done, he's ready to assemble it with the main piece. Turns out, he's making a brass guitar. Compared to a wooden guitar, this requires a much higher level of craftsmanship. As the detailing continues, the overall shape begins to take form, and with that, a guitar crafted from melted scrap brass is complete. So, what do you think of his creativity? Out of 10, how would you rate him? This man is definitely a genius. While hanging clothes for his girlfriend, he noticed the line in the yard couldn't handle the weight. All the clothes piled up in a heap and wouldn't dry even after a month, so he immediately came up with a solution. He collected pull tabs from soda cans, determined to fix the issue. First, he measured everything with a tape measure, then marked spots with a marker, and secured each pull tab with screws using a power drill, creating the setup seen in the video. On the other end, he attached a threaded hook for hanging clothes to improve the appearance. He glued plastic bottle caps, coated with hot glue, to each side, giving it a cleaner look. Then he took it out to the yard for a test run. Clothes hung across the pull tabs, and the line held up under all the weight. His girlfriend was so thrilled with the invention, she couldn't stop jumping up and down with excitement. So, what do you think of his idea? Out of 10, how would you rate his creativity? This man is definitely a genius. He first uses a saw to cut it without hesitation. Then he moves to the lathe, executing a series of incredible operations. He manages to craft a beautiful and unique piece of art that money can't buy. He begins by repeatedly using a carving knife, quickly grinding off 1 centimeter from the entire surface of the green bamboo. Meanwhile, he extends from both ends slowly towards the center, shaping it into a semicircular form, until he removes the unnecessary nodes from the top. Then he clamps it with a thick piece of wood, sanding it into a suitably sized circle and marking a ring. Next, he takes a curved carving knife as a reference, carefully chiseling out arc-shaped notches from large to small. Then he marks a 1 centimeter edge on the outer circle. After drawing 2 45-degree bevels, he makes some cuts on the replicator. Pay attention to every specific step in his operation, until he sands it back and forth to a smooth finish. But this is only half of the initial completion. Next comes a clever operation, which is the most crucial part of the entire process. It's clear that he is not only skilled, but also very meticulous and has a unique vision. Otherwise, how could he casually chisel a plain piece of wood into a matching lid, and drill a hole in a thin bamboo segment, hammering in a necessary pin as a handle for convenience? At this point, a traditional bamboo cup cleverly made from bamboo is now perfectly displayed before everyone. So what do you think of his creativity? Out of 10 points, how would you rate him? This man is absolutely a genius. He collected these old bamboo stalks from the mountain, cutting them all into sections at roughly 30 centimeters intervals, then placed them onto a machine. Using steady, rotating motion, he hollowed out all the bamboo nodes inside. As shown in the video, the inside was smoothed and rounded, then each piece was precisely cut, creating a notch needed for further processing. He lined them up in an iron frame, preparing them to be loaded into a high-temperature furnace. After quick carbonization and drying, the bamboo was now moisture-free. Next, using a rolling press, he compressed them into thin, firm sheets. With repeated processing, he achieved this wood-like bamboo board. Of course, he also trimmed off the excess edges, then cut them to the desired size, and coated the entire surface with adhesive. Using the leftover scraps from the initial cuts, he layered and assembled them for added thickness, wrapping tape around them to hold everything in place, then pressed them tightly to form a solid unit. Next, he polished the edges until smooth and rounded, and with that, this bamboo cutting board was skillfully completed. Finally, he used a computer laser to add a branded mark, applied a coat of wood wax oil on the surface. So, what do you think of his craftsmanship? Out of a score of 10, how much would you rate him? This man is absolutely a genius. He started by bending and coiling rebar, threading it through and onto a straight steel pipe, arranging them in an orderly sequence with even spacing. Then, he welded 4 additional rods to the outer structure, securing and combining them into a circular frame. He cleaned off any residue from the semicircular mold, and evenly applied waste engine oil with a mop for lubrication. Next, he aligned the mold components and fastened them together, tightening nuts on threaded rods to hold everything firmly in place. The fixed steel rings were then gently inserted into the mold. Before starting, he carefully measured proportions, mixing cement, sand, and gravel in a mixer, creating a robust concrete blend. With the help of chains and hooks, he placed the mold precisely at the center of a rotating axis, turned on the machine to spin it at a steady speed, and began pouring the prepared concrete into the mold. The concrete enveloped and concealed the rebar completely. During this process, 2 people worked in sync, smoothing and refining the uneven inner surface until it was perfectly round. Once the concrete had fully cured and hardened, they dismantled the mold, producing a durable and sturdy precast concrete pipe, commonly used in sewers and drainage systems. So, what do you think of their craftsmanship? Out of 10 points, how much would you rate them? This man is definitely a genius. He spaced wooden blocks about half a meter apart on the roof. Each block was precisely positioned to create a uniform level height. Next, he soaked the prepared thick wooden planks 1 by 1 in lime water. This ensured protection against pests and decay while preventing future oxidation. Meanwhile, he placed these straight wooden beams, securely fixed them onto the wooden blocks with nails, then surrounded the outer edge with separate wooden boards for shielding. The exact design matches the current video. Afterward, he gathered a large amount of thick old sponge, arranged it meticulously, filling the gaps completely between the wooden blocks, and covered the surface with a layer of waterproof tarpaulin, using wooden beams in an intersecting pattern. To secure them over the waterproof layer, carefully trimmed the excess at the joints, ensuring a seamless fit, meeting the overall structural requirements. But the next clever step was relatively straightforward, simply trimming off the protruding wooden beams at the edges, followed by placing in aligning corrugated metal sheets. Thus, a sturdy roof that blocks sun and rain while keeping warm and insulated was perfectly and ingeniously built. So, what do you think of their craftsmanship? Out of 10, how many points would you give it? This man is absolutely a genius. Using the scrap metal in front of him, he can build a 4-wheel cart that could bring prosperity to locals. First, he places each flat iron bar on the press to punch holes, creating a crucial part for the cart. Though it may seem simple in structure, its function directly determines if the vehicle can run smoothly, and punching holes is just the first step of processing. After hammering them flat, he places the flat iron with its side up on a bending device. As the arm of the device rotates, the ends of the flat iron are bent into rounded 90-degree angles, forming a U-shaped piece to facilitate the later assembly. The shaped flat iron is placed back on the press to punch a row of bolt holes in the center. Under his skilled operation, all the holes are punched. Then he uses a small hammer to smooth out any deformities, ensuring they are straight with no bends. Next, he can start making the wheels. Since the spokes of the old motorcycle rims are long gone, he needs to weld these bent steel plates to a steel tube section, making a new hub that will allow wheel installation. Notice the tires have no inner tubes. Instead, he fills them with other used tires. So, in theory, no air is needed. Once all tires are installed, he can move on to a crucial structure, which is the cart body. The body is made of brand new solid wood. He first cuts the wood to the needed length, then lays out 6 boards of the same size on the ground, cutting the excess from 2 wooden pieces for the width. He nails each end of the boards to the wooden pieces, securing the boards in the middle. To create a door-like panel structure, with additional reinforcement, he adds wooden boards along the edges to create a frame, then nails them meticulously in place, completing the wooden cart frame. Now the 4-wheel cart is just one assembly away from completion, since each flat iron piece connects the wheels to the frame. The first step in assembly is to link 4 flat iron bars with long bolts, getting ready to mount them to the frame. Then he bolts the iron frame to the wooden panel, and attaches each of the 4 wheels to the frame ends. This 4-wheeled cart, made from old motorcycle rims, is now fully assembled. The large wooden surface can hold a variety of items. So, what do you think of his idea? Out of 10, how would you rate his creativity? This man is absolutely a genius. He first sketches the outline of a steel pipe on a metal plate, then precisely cuts it out. Next, he welds a circular metal plate onto one end of the pipe, sealing and capping the pipe. He uses a polishing machine to smooth the welds and surface, making the pipe look sleek and flawless. Then he marks various points along the pipe with a ruler, drawing a circle around one of the side markings, as a reference for drilling a hole later. Once drawn, he secures the pipe on a drill press, and begins drilling at the marked intersection points. Next, he sketches the outline of a threaded elbow joint on the metal plate, and cuts it out, then fits the threaded elbow joint into the hole, securing it in place by welding, ensuring a tight seal all around. After completing this part, he flips the metal plate over, welding a square tube at each corner for support. Then he places a larger pipe over the steel pipe, and welds the pipe to the metal plate. Next, he takes a circular plate with 7 holes, and welds a connecting steel pipe to each hole. After completing this section, he screws the valve back into the oil burner, connecting a 90-degree pipe to the fuel inlet. Once the fuel inlet is connected, he attaches another steel pipe to the air intake, and connects the other end of the pipe to a blower. Then he pours waste oil into the fuel pipe and prepares an automatic oil feeder. He begins testing by lighting a piece of paper in the oil burner while switching on the blower. The surface temperature of the burner quickly rises, reaching 500 degrees Celsius. However, with this setup, the burner is still a basic waste oil burner, and using waste oil indoors creates a strong smell. To address this issue, he decides to add a casing to the burner. This casing includes 3 openings, one for the fuel pipe, one for the exhaust, and one for installing an exhaust fan. He first welds the exhaust fan onto the casing, secures it, then welds an exhaust pipe to the casing. Then he screws the fuel pipe in place and welds it to the casing. With these sealing measures, the burner can deliver more heat indoors when in use. Next, he moves the oil burner outdoors, turns on the faucet to let waste oil flow into the burner through the fuel inlet, then lights the burner with a piece of paper. The exhaust fan blows strongly from the outlet, and the burner's efficiency is impressive. He connects a segment of smoke pipe to the exhaust, and routes the other end through a hole to bring heat indoors. Using a thermometer, he confirms the exhaust temperature is consistently over 70 degrees Celsius, showing that the burner has excellent heating efficiency. Not only does it provide room heating, but it can also be used for cooking. So, what do you think of his creativity? Out of 10, what score would you give him?
Cutting boards always get moldy and dark. Pour 70-degree hot water over it. Sprinkle baking soda. Add white vinegar and let sit for 10 minutes. Sprinkle salt to increase friction. Scrub gently with a scouring pad. Rinse with water and your cutting board will look brand new. 2. Mix baking soda and vinegar. Let sit for 2 minutes. Rinse with water. Tea-stained cups will instantly become clean as new. 3. Combine baking soda, vinegar, dish soap, and warm water. Spray it on the range hood. The cleaning effect is remarkable. Spray it on the stovetop to easily remove stubborn grease. 4. Refrigerator smells too bad after prolonged use? In a cup, add tea leaves, baking soda, white wine, and vinegar. Dilute with water. Place it in the fridge. All odors will disappear. 5. Mix dish soap, disinfectant, and baking soda with water. Dilute with water. Spray on moldy, darkened areas and let sit for 5 minutes. Remove with ease. 6. Bad odor coming from the bathroom? Here's a tip. Mix baking soda, a spoon of salt, and 60 degrees warm water. Use it once a week. If it doesn't work, come find me. 7. Add baking soda, salt, and vinegar to a cup. Soak scissors in it for 10 minutes. The scissors will come out looking brand new. 8. Lid of your pot covered in thick grease after long use. Add baking soda, vinegar, dish soap, and beer to water. Stir to mix evenly. Soak the lid for 10 minutes. Scrub with a scouring pad. Rinse with water and it's completely clean. Follow me to learn more practical life tips.
This man is definitely a madman. He stuck an umbrella into the ground, then wrapped a 5 cm wide strip of thin metal around the umbrella, spacing bricks closely along the perimeter as dividers, to allow him to pour in cement with a trowel in succession, filling to the proper thickness all around. Then he prepared a circular rebar of matching size, pressing it in to ensure it was firm and crack-free. Once the cement fully solidified and set, he cut a large hole on the umbrella's surface, so he could fill it with river sand, and arranged rings of solid rebar from large to small. Then he molded clumps of cement, stacking them in a pyramid shape, layer by layer offset as they rose. The top layer was smoothed with cement for a base finish. Next, he prepared 3 piles of river sand, covered each with a banana leaf, to form the needed cement shapes, making sure the thickness was around 2 centimeters. Meanwhile, he leveled the ground beneath, and placed several dozen bricks upright in rows, using cement to seal and reinforce the gaps. Of course, the umbrella could now be removed. He sprinkled a bit of cement slurry, evenly smoothing it over as a finishing touch. Then he placed it onto the prepared brick base. Next, he inserted a cut red brick into a soft tube and aligned it inside, placing bricks horizontally about 10 centimeters apart on either side, with the tube embedded in the center. The cement piece was drilled to leave a reserved hole, which was placed on top of 3 red brick supports. The tube passed through the cement surface. An S-shaped rebar was bound tightly to the tube vertically, securing the base with cement for stability. He wrapped the entire tube and rebar in layers of cement-coated cloth, sculpting the cement to achieve the desired shape. Once the excess tube was cut off, the remaining 2 cement blocks were each placed on either side behind, fixed together with thin wire, and the surface reinforced with cement, adorned with colorful decorations. He surrounded the ground in a full circle of bricks, connected a submersible pump to the tube and added some small stones, and thus, a creative, eco-friendly decorative fish pond was completed. So, what do you think of his creativity? Out of 10, how would you rate it? This man is absolutely a genius. He took plastic bags picked from a trash pile and turned them into household items after burning them in a strong fire. As he added and stirred the melted material, it formed a cohesive mass. The plastic bags became as elastic as dough. At this point, the iron pot could no longer hold the material, so he flipped it onto an iron plate, continuing to bake, press, and roll it, gradually kneading it into a unified shape. Once fully blended, he set it aside to cool and harden. These waste materials were transformed into treasures through further processing and refinement. He swung a hammer, breaking the hardened plastic bags into pieces, then sent them into a grinder to be processed into powdery granules. After packaging them into containers, they were fed into another machine for heating and pressing. This process produced a purplish red object. Next, he trimmed away the excess material on the edges, and thus, a water kettle made from recycled plastic was completed. But it's unclear whether this water kettle has an odor, and how much it would be worth if sold in bulk. So, what do you think of their creativity? Out of 10, how many points would you give them? This is a little-known violent industry. Abandoned oil drums that could only be sold as scrap. After some processing and manufacturing, their value suddenly skyrockets hundreds of times. First, he flattens the discarded oil drums to create rectangular sheets of metal. Then he processes these sheets with a cutting machine to obtain the shapes needed to make this item. Next, he places the cut metal sheets into a stamping machine to shape them. This results in the original prototype of the item. Then he trims the edges of the formed metal sheets to remove all the excess material from the edges. After completing this, he uses a grinder to smooth the surface, also removing rust generated during oxidation. The bottom of the item needs a welded fastener for fixing. Of course, this fastener is also made from the cut scrap metal. The next step is to punch holes in the surface of the item to facilitate assembly later on. Not only that, corresponding holes must also be drilled into the sides. At this point, can you guess what he is making? Feel free to comment and see if your guess is correct. Next, the finished item undergoes a spray paint treatment to prevent it from rusting easily during subsequent use. The painted item also needs to be placed in an oven to heat it at a high temperature, making the paint more durable. After baking, it is taken out. Then on the drilled holes, a screw is used to fix a fastening piece for assembly. Once all these steps are done, he takes out a piece of sponge similar to a seat cushion and uses a blade to trim the edges neatly. Then he retrieves the prepared metal sheet and covers it with a sponge cushion. Finally, he lays a piece of black leather on top, binding it securely along the drilled holes. Thus, a delicate motorcycle seat cushion is fully made. So what do you think of his craftsmanship? On a scale of 10, how many points would you give him?
A small balloon can have so many magical uses, especially the last one. 1. Cut a hole at the tail of the balloon, then stretch it over the faucet. This way, wherever you want the water to spray, it will spray there. 2. Air conditioner drain leaking onto the wall. Here's a trick for you. Inflate the balloon a little. Twist it 3 times in the middle. Use a tie to secure the middle. Then place it behind the drain pipe and tie it securely. This will solve the problem of water draining onto the wall. 3. When chair legs directly touch the floor, they are noisy and not durable. Simply use a balloon as a foot pad. Just put it on like this. When moving, it prevents slipping and won't make loud noise. 4. Glasses slide easily on smooth tables. If you're not careful, they could fall and break. Here's a trick. Just cut off the top part of a balloon, then stretch it over the bottom of the glass. It will prevent slipping and also won't burn your hands when holding hot water. 5. Fill a balloon with water. Tie the opening. Then put it in a black net bag. This squishy toy will be irresistible to kids. 6. Put a glass bead inside a balloon. Then, like in the video, tie it with a rubber band. Flip it over and inflate the balloon. Then decorate it with your favorite stickers. You'll have a little snowman that won't fall over. Kids will love it. 7. Cut a finger cot. Fill it with white vinegar. Tie it with a rubber band. Put the vinegar-filled finger cot inside the balloon. Add a spoonful of baking soda. Tie the balloon and draw your favorite design. Hit the balloon and it will inflate. 8. When a child doesn't know how to wipe their bottom, we stick 2 balloons on a chair. Then teach them how to clean their bottom. The technique is fun and easy to learn. 9. Thread a needle with string. Then pass it through the center of this glue. Blow up a balloon. Wrap the string around the balloon. Once wrapped, use the needle to pop the balloon. Then cut off the balloon. Make a circle. Take out the balloon remnants. You now have a no-cost lampshade. If you haven't learned it, remember to follow and save. Otherwise, you might not be able to find it again when scrolling.
This man is definitely a genius. He actually found a discarded propane tank in a pile of trash. First, he removed the valve from the tank, then filled it with water to prevent any safety risks while working on it later. Next, he used a cutting tool to remove the tank's base, then switched to a grinding brush to strip off all the paint from the surface. After that, he marked a rectangle on the tank with a ruler, then used the cutting tool to remove the excess in the middle. It's important to cut the metal sheet in half. Then he welded these 2 metal sheets to each side of the rectangle to form a trapezoid. Next, he marked a pattern on both sides with more metal sheets, cutting them to match so he could weld them onto the sides, then welded another metal sheet on top to seal it. Next, he used 2 circular molds to draw circles at the bottom of the tank, then cut along these circular marks with the cutting tool. Before finishing the cut, he welded a hinge at the outer edge, so that once fully cut, it became a door. In the center, he welded a circular glass cover over the hole he had drawn. Next, he drilled a hole near the door and installed a screw as a latch. Now it was time to make an ash collection tray. He marked it out on the tank, cut it into a grid pattern, then welded a small ash collection box made from square tubes underneath. After that, he took a 90-degree exhaust pipe and placed it on top of the tank, marking the spot, then cut according to the markings, and welded the exhaust pipe into place. At this point, the stove was mostly complete. To mount it on the wall, he welded 3 corner brackets with holes at the handle position. Once he reached the stage, he coated the entire surface with high-temperature, rust-resistant paint. Next, he held it up to the wall, marking the hole positions, then drilled holes based on these marks, installed expansion bolts, and mounted it, connecting an extended flue. With that, the propane tank-turned heating stove was finished. When he uses it, he just needs to add firewood and light it. The room heats up quickly, and he can even use it to boil water or make tea. So, what do you think of his idea? Out of 10, how would you rate his creativity? This man is an absolute genius. He cuts the wood into dozens of segments, sanding and refining them to an even thickness and smooth finish, then trimming both ends to a 45-degree angle. Carving a 1 centimeter groove on the inner edges is shown in the current video, so he can assemble and connect them, using a nail gun and nails to secure a rectangular frame. Of course, he adds an extra wooden bar in the center, to ensure the frame structure can easily support several hundred pounds. He repeats this process to create 3 frames of varying widths, then he arranges the cut wood boards, laying them edge to edge on the surface, so they're level with the surrounding frame, using tools to make shallow 1 centimeter grooves in 3 spots, top, middle, and bottom, ensuring the perfect fit for the necessary mortise hinges, securing them tightly in place. Then, in the back corner, he installs 4 short wood pieces vertically as the base supports, adding caster wheels to make it easy to move later on. Next, he prepares 4 rounded wooden posts with pre-drilled holes, using screws as the central pillars. This only completes half of the preliminary structure. He also cuts and sands a large semicircular board. After slotting and drilling holes, he assembles it together, crafting the front end support needed. Now he just needs to drill matching holes and lock it down with screws. Finally, he applies a bright protective varnish to keep out insects. And just like that, a functional wooden folding bed is complete. So, what do you think of his creativity? Out of 10, how would you rate his work? This man is absolutely a genius. Since he was always exhausted using a handcart to move things, he decided to completely redesign it. First, he got 4 angle irons of different lengths and welded them into a square frame, making sure everything was perfectly aligned. Next, he took 4 square pipes and welded them into another square frame. He found some bearings and steel rods and welded them into a solid piece, allowing him to attach the bearings to the smaller frame sides, then placed it inside the angle iron frame, ensuring it could move smoothly. He then brought over an electric bike frame and a pair of wheels, positioned them with the angle iron frame, and welded a crossbeam at the 60 centimeter mark, also using 2 angle irons to secure the frame to the bike's front fork. On the inside of the handlebars, he welded a support plate with a steel cable for the joystick attached above using screws. At the top, he welded on a pulley system. He also welded a triangular steel support on the square pipe frame to handle the load when lifting. Now, moving the handle raises and lowers the square pipe frame. Next, he brought over a pair of used forklift forks, aligned them, and welded them to the bottom of the square pipe frame with clips, then polished away any welding debris and rust. With that, the cart's main frame was ready. But before use, he installed a large capacity battery pack, added a controller and handle, and connected the controller's wires. After that, he installed the controller, finally attaching the brake system. Now, this electric forklift made from angle iron and square pipe was complete. So what do you think of his invention? Out of 10, how many points would you give him?
Useful tricks with hangers. If you don't know them, you're missing out. 1. Cut off the bottom of the hanger. Bend both sides down and in. Slip a roll of toilet paper on it, and now you have a handy wall-mounted toilet paper holder. Cut the hanger in the middle. Slip on some kitchen paper. Hang it up for easy use. 2. Fold the bottom of the hanger into a wave shape. Use it to hang pot lids. Stable, secure, and practical. 3. Fold the hanger inward. Slip one end onto the hook. Bend both sides up. Now you have a hairdryer holder. 4. Pull the hanger up. Tie the 2 hangers together with a string. Place a pillow on top. This is the correct way to dry a pillow. 5. Pull the hanger apart. Bend the hook upwards. Then rotate it 90 degrees to make 2. Secure all 4 corners. Now you have a convenient hanging trash bin. 6. Bend the hanger into a W shape. This way your pants won't fall off or get stretched out. It's also great for drying shoes, isn't it? 7. Bend both ends of the hanger like this. Tie the 2 bent hangers together with zip ties. Now you have a simple free shoe rack. Follow me for more life hacks every day.
This woman is absolutely a genius. She took a moisture-proof oilcloth, laid it flat across the room floor, leaving about a 10 centimeter edge folded up around all sides. Then she securely attached foam strips of matching width around the entire wall perimeter. Next, she took preformed modules, aligned and pressed them together slot by slot, until the entire surface was covered. Following the slots built into the module surfaces, she began laying from the outer edges, gradually moving inward with enough spacing to install thick, heat-resistant tubing, ensuring to leave extra length at the ends. Then she mixed cement paste, using tools like a trowel and steel pipe, evenly spread a 2 cm thick layer, letting it fully set and harden over a few days. She then trimmed the excess foam and oilcloth edges, cleared away the debris and laid a faux brick carpet over the surface, making it easy to clean and adding visual appeal. Next, she connected the extra tubing to the water heater's outlet. This simple, convenient, and quick floor heating setup effortlessly raises the floor temperature to an impressive 40 degrees. Even on the coldest days, the room feels like springtime inside. So what do you think of her invention? Out of 10, how many points would you give her? This man is absolutely insane. He picked up a grinder and cut his car's steering wheel in half, removed it and placed it on the table, cut around the circular edge, sawed off the steering wheel components, drew circular marks on a wooden board, took out a brand new section of iron chain, arranged it into a circle following the marks, secured each link with screws using nails, trimmed the excess chain ends with the grinder, made precise cuts and refinements, widened the ends of the chain links, shaped and hammered them together, welded them one by one to secure, reinforced every connection between the links to prevent loosening or cracking. He pulled out a pile of large nuts, lined them up in a row, placed a few nuts on top of the row, welded them together into a single piece, placed it on the table after welding, positioned the steering wheel components on top, inserted 2 bolts from both sides and secured them. He grabbed a spray can, painted the entire chain structure meticulously. After finishing the coloring, polished the surface to create various patterns, then took a skull mask, drilled circular holes along the edges to install a pressure gauge, attached red car lights as accents in the eye sockets, mounted it on the nuts and fixed it to the car's steering wheel, and with that, a visually stunning steering wheel was complete. So what do you think of his creativity? Out of 10 points, how much would you give him? This man is definitely a genius. He used a rope to draw a circle on the concrete ground, placed bricks along the outer edge of the circle, forming a circular frame. After neatly arranging the bricks, he filled the gaps between them with cement, smoothing it out to secure the bricks together. Then, he drew a straight line across the center of the frame, dividing the circular frame in half, applied cement on the bricks and began stacking. Halfway through, he installed a capped pipe as a drainage outlet. The bricks were laid in a traditional staggered pattern, layer by layer, gradually building up, stacking a total of 5 layers of bricks. On the other half, he arranged the bricks vertically, creating a unique semicircular shape. To enhance structural strength and waterproofing, he applied cement evenly on the inner surface of the walls, used a damp sponge to polish the cement surface until it was smooth as a mirror. The top of the wall was also coated with cement mortar. Bricks were laid horizontally to form a refined edge. For this section, he used half bricks for the layout, spread a layer of sand on the cement ground and compacted it, poured cement mortar into the pool, smoothed it to create a sturdy waterproof layer, then brought several plastic balls, cut a circular opening in each ball with a utility knife, fixed the balls onto the pipe, filled each ball with cement mortar. Once the cement dried, he flipped the balls, placed them on plastic sheets and sprayed them with gold paint. To secure these golden decorative balls, he shaped specific bases with cement on the ground, embedded the pipe in the middle and placed the balls on top, ensuring a seamless blend. After the cement dried completely, he painted the bases white, enhancing the overall aesthetics and artistic appeal. Next, he thoroughly cleaned the fish pond, swept every corner inside with a broom, removed residual dust and debris to keep the interior spotless, emptied the water and poured filtering materials into a custom base, connected a soft pipe to the water pump, placed larger rocks beside the pump, arranged greenery and pebbles inside the pond, adding a natural vibe to the space. Finally, filled the pond with clean water and added ornamental fish. Thus, the meticulously crafted decorative and functional filtered fish pond was completed. What do you think of his creativity? Out of 10, how many points would you give him? This man is definitely a genius. You can see him wrapping some aluminum foil around his boyfriend's head, pressing it down to match the contours of his head. After securing both ears, he continues wrapping with tape, then cuts and separates to create a completed head cap. Each piece is carefully transferred onto foam board. As each section is cut out, a small amount of strong adhesive is applied to the edges, allowing it to bond into one cohesive unit. However, larger curved areas need to be softened with a heat gun, then slowly adhered in joint piece by piece. From the outside, it looks like a head-shaped frame, but these connecting strips aren't fully secured yet, so sealant is applied along each line and smoothed with a sander to make it look even better. A base coat is first sprayed on, with the knife and sander adding carved details, revealing muscular textures and relief. With a layer of black paint applied over it, the textured lines appear like a long sleeping robot. With each step of detailing and the addition of an LED visor, it gives off a mysterious vibe. And now a helmet with a sci-fi atmosphere and metallic edge is right before your eyes. It looks simple yet radiates elegance and authority. So what do you think of his creativity? Out of 10, how many points would you give him? This man is undoubtedly a genius. He started by marking the stone with a ruler. Then, using a cutting machine, he made a 5 centimeters deep circular cut. This allowed him to use a chisel and hammer to forcefully chip away excess material, quickly breaking off the unwanted parts. He repeated the cutting process until the surface was perfectly even, then polished it smooth and rounded. He repeated the process on the other end, leaving a 1 meter length in the middle. Next, he stood it upright. Using a marker, he drew evenly spaced points around it, leaving an outer width of about 3 centimeters. Using the circular lines as a guide, he made crisscross cuts to the required depth, as shown in the video. He then used a chisel and hammer to carefully carve, creating the grooves with ease. He refined the uneven areas, using an angle grinder to reshape them, polishing the interior until it was smooth and rounded. He drilled holes along the edges and sides, ensuring they aligned and connected perfectly. He also drilled through the center. Finally, he installed a faucet and valve. And just like that, a beautifully carved stone sink was complete. So, what do you think of his creativity? Out of 10, how many points would you give him? This man is definitely a genius. He managed to restore a dead battery to look brand new. First, he removed the battery's liquid injection port cover, using a power drill and spacer to twist open each cap. Then he poured the electrolyte from the battery into a plastic container. You can see the electrolyte had turned completely black. Next, he placed a funnel in each injection port, carefully adding baking soda into each port, making sure to add the right amount in every one. Then he topped off each port with distilled water, waiting a few minutes. The distilled water flushes the battery's interior, helping to clear oxidation from the walls and boost battery performance. He filled it again with distilled water, ensuring the inside was completely rinsed. Afterwards, he poured out the distilled water into a plastic container. The key to restoring the battery was refilling it with fresh electrolyte. Using a funnel, he filled each port with electrolyte. Before, he didn't know how to repair batteries. When his motorcycle wouldn't start, the mechanic told him the battery was dead and needed replacing. That replacement cost him $1,000. After that, he decided to try fixing it himself. Once he charged the battery to 59%, he twisted the caps back on and carefully reattached the outer casing. Then he connected a light bulb to test it out. The light bulb lit up perfectly. So what do you think of this repair method? Out of 10, how would you rate his skill? This man is undoubtedly a genius. He marked along the edge of the doorframe and used a power saw to cut a 2 centimeter notch, then made an identical cut on the floor, precisely shaping a rectangular groove, making it easy to create the slot with a power drill. The tiles on the doorframe edges were slotted in the same way, carefully cleaned to the proper depth. He then prepared matching wooden planks, vertically and horizontally joined at a perfect 90-degree angle. Simultaneously, 5 centimeter wide wooden strips were screwed along the edges to form the necessary barriers. Once the level dimensions were securely fixed, he measured the entire structure with a tape measure, then cut hooked steel bars, arranging them piece by piece within the wooden frame, crossing them in a crisscross pattern for added durability. Each piece was tightly tied and secured with wire. A side panel was added to complete the setup, meeting all the pre-processing requirements. He sprinkled water over the surface, then poured the evenly mixed cement slowly into the frame through the top opening, while lightly tapping with a hammer to eliminate any trapped air bubbles in the structure. Once the cement fully set, he removed the wooden planks that served their purpose, thus completing a simple dining table. So, what do you think of his creativity? Out of 10 points, how much would you rate his work? This woman is absolutely a genius. She inserts a section of square pipe into the center of the river and marks the water surface level, then hands the marked square pipe to her boyfriend and begins the creative project. With just a simple creation, she achieves the spectacle of fish swimming in mid-air. The man first assembles the square pipe into a square shape, then places it on a table saw to measure the precise dimensions. Next, according to these measurements, he places an acrylic sheet on top and cuts out a square, then places 3 circular paper pieces on top, sprays them with red paint to mark them. Once the markings are complete, he starts using a jigsaw to cut along the edges, then wraps an LED light strip around the circular edge, and applies a layer of structural glue to secure it. Once the preparation is done, the woman first places the square support frame in the center of the pond. Meanwhile, she fixes the acrylic partition to the support frame, then places the cylindrical transparent glass into the hole, and seals it properly. Next, she uses a vacuum pump to extract the air inside, so the river water can flow backward through the pipe, allowing the goldfish to enjoy an unprecedented view. With that, the negative pressure fish tank made from acrylic sheets is complete. So, what do you think of their creativity? On a scale of 1 to 10, how many points would you give them? This man is undoubtedly a genius. The new bike fell apart after just a ride. Seeing the detached chain ring, he immediately had an idea. He first secured the crank in a vise, then used an angle grinder to cut the crank, separating it from the chainring. To clean the chainring, he applied gasoline to it and scrubbed it carefully to remove all grease and grime, then firmly tightened it with screws. Afterward, he removed the other crank and replaced it with a new chainring, secured the chainring tightly onto the axle by tightening the nut. Then he carefully reattached the bike chain to the chainring, ensuring the chain and gears rotated smoothly. Next, he took the detached front wheel, placed it back into the fork, and tightened the nuts. Once secured, he removed the cup holder from the bike, preparing it for the next installation step. He then marked the screw hole positions for a 24-volt brushed motor on an iron plate, drilled the holes accordingly, and precisely inserted 2 screws in the center of the plate. These screws weren't placed randomly, they aligned with the screw holes of the cup holder. Using these screws, he secured the iron plate to the bike frame, and attached the gear to the motor's shaft with screws. Once secure, he brought out another chain, connecting the gear to the chainring on the bottom bracket, creating a cohesive system for power transfer. He then took out 2 batteries, a controller for the brushed motor, and a handlebar with a display throttle for an electric bike, preparing to set up the electric system. First, he connected the handlebar's wiring plug to the controller, ensuring a tight fit, then connected the controller to the motor's wiring, verified each connection and wrapped them with tape. Next, he took the controller's white wire, carefully connected it to the battery's positive terminal, and secured it tightly with screws. The controller's black wire was connected to the battery's negative terminal. At that moment, the display on the handlebar lit up instantly. Then he installed the lockable handlebar on the right side of the bike, and taped the wires securely. The controller was also taped securely below. After securing everything, he used zip ties to fasten the 2 batteries to the frame. At last, this bike-turned-electric vehicle was completed. He eagerly took it for a test ride. The results were nothing short of amazing. The electric bike showed an unexpectedly powerful performance. So, what do you think of his idea? Out of 10, how would you rate him? This man is definitely a genius. He loaded up a wheelbarrow full of rocks, but unexpectedly, the wheelbarrow tipped over. Suddenly, he got an idea to redesign it a bit. First, he removes the wheel from the barrow, then finds a piece of steel pipe, and marks out the dimensions, cutting precisely 2.5 centimeters. After welding it securely, he grinds off the weld marks. Now he places a gear plate on it, welding it firmly in the same way. The steel pipe on the other side, however, needs to be longer, so he attaches a brake pad to it, giving it the look seen in the video. Then he reattaches it to the barrow, tightening the nuts and running a test. The rotation is incredibly smooth. Next, he gets a brake assembly, simply welding a connector bracket to it. Once welded firmly, he measures the engine's dimensions, and drills holes and length into the angle iron, cutting an arc-shaped groove into the circular disc, to securely lock in the engine. He assembles a tray bracket from metal plates and fixes it in place, but the barrel also needs another angle iron, to bear the engine's weight and positioning. With the chain installed and the controller in place, the redesigned powered wheelbarrow is ready before you. Now, he eagerly starts the engine for a test. You can see the machine and wheel sync perfectly, effortlessly pushing loads of heavy rocks and sand, even operable with one hand. So, what do you think of his creativity? Out of 10, how many points would you give him? This man is absolutely a genius. Having just bought a new house and planning to renovate it, he unexpectedly discovered that this 70 square meter house didn't even have a decent space for a study. So he suddenly had a bright idea. He decided to use his decades of renovation experience to create a study of his own. When he finally saw the finished product, it was truly unexpected. The final product, which cost just $500, turned out to be more beautiful than those costing tens of thousands. He started by securing everything with screws, and left precise dimensions for the door frame, using a level to mark straight lines. After removing the 2 central light steel keels, he reassembled and secured them in place, successfully creating the required window opening. Then, he supported the upper and lower sections separately, quickly achieving the desired results during the operation. When he inserted square pipes along the door frame, he could then fit large prefabricated gypsum boards, one by one, aligning them carefully. Just needed to add a few more screws, to ensure everything was securely fastened. After cutting away the excess materials from the door and window areas, he then filled all the gaps on the outside, with a layer of fireproof and soundproof insulation, greatly reducing any future noise disturbances. He used the same method and technique for the surface, skillfully installing and covering it with a full layer of gypsum board. You have to admit, his craftsmanship is quite impressive. In less than half a day, he easily transformed the originally empty living room into a cozy and elegant study, and also saved a considerable amount on labor costs. So, what do you think of his creativity? This woman is definitely a genius, only because she had a fight with her husband and was kicked out of the house, so she decided to build a house of her own. First, she cut down some sturdy bamboo from the nearby bamboo forest, then she tied the bamboo into a bundle. At both ends, she fixed 2 oil barrels. Next, she inserted and fixed another bundle of bamboo in the middle. The connection points must be tied securely with wire. After that, the woman continued to perfect the entire water platform. She placed some bamboo at intervals on top, then tied them securely with wire. This was the load-bearing platform for the house on the water. To make it easier to walk, she covered the top with large processed bamboo sheets. As she laid them out, she secured them with long strips of bamboo. After a long period of hard work, a strong and durable water platform was finally completed. Next, she brought over some processed bamboo and assembled them together. She first fixed 2 support frames on both sides. In the middle, she connected and reinforced them with long bamboo. Of course, she didn't forget about the windows of the bamboo house. After chiseling the grooves for connection, she used bamboo to divide the windows. As for the roof of the bamboo house, she took some shaped bamboo and placed them on the roof roof beams. The connection points also needed to be tied securely with wire. After building the roof frame, she laid a layer of waterproof tarp, then continued to lay a layer of artificial turf on top. The design of the bamboo walls was also full of creativity. She connected plastic bottles together, then threaded wire through the bamboo. The other end could be threaded through the processed plastic bottles, fixed in this order, forming the structure of the bamboo house walls. The final installation looked great. Next, the woman cut some aluminum cans and crafted them into lantern shapes. Then she hammered a few nails above and below the windows, so she could use wire to string the aluminum can lanterns together and fix them to the windows. Isn't this clever design something you've never seen before? Then the woman brought over some more bamboo and started processing them with tools. Once the bamboo was processed, she used bamboo rafts to transport it to the platform and began assembling the bamboo. She started installing railings for the bamboo house. This process was also very important. At this point, the construction of the bamboo house on the water was complete. You have to admire her exquisite craftsmanship and brilliant creativity. If you were to score her out of 10, how much would you give her? This guy is an absolute genius. He actually used a cooling pad from an old laptop to make a small air conditioner. It not only cools down to -20 degrees instantly, but it's also easy to make. First, find a laptop cooling pad. Start by flipping the two fans and fixing them in place. Next, take a box that's about the same size as the cooling pad to use as a mold. Wrap a 3mm copper tube around the box. Bend and shape it as you go. After 3 or 5 loops, soon a rectangular condenser takes shape. It fits perfectly around the fans on the cooling pad, but this is just the first step. Then he takes out 2 conical steel pipes with caps and a 4.7mm copper tube. As before, wrap the copper tube around the steel pipe to shape it until the tube is fully covered in a spiral pattern. Now the air conditioner has 2 evaporators. Place them aside for later use. Next, he drills holes in the 4 corners of the cooling pad's plastic casing and taps threads into the holes with a tap wrench. Screws are then inserted into each hole, and it's time to start assembling the parts. He first glues the condenser to the outside of the fan. The top of the fan is glued to the steel pipe's cap, which acts as a base for the evaporator. Then he installs a water pump as the compressor and glues a 4-way connector opposite the compressor. At this point, everything is ready, and there's just one last step. That's connecting the pipes between each part. He uses blue and yellow hoses to connect the upper and lower copper tubes of the 2 evaporators. Then he takes a shorter blue hose, connecting one end to an air nozzle and the other end to the 4-way connector. This air nozzle plays a crucial role because the diameter of the condenser's copper tube is quite small. A larger copper tube is needed to fit over the connector, and it's welded in place. Once this is done, he also welds 2 more large copper tubes to a thinner copper tube. This thinnest copper tube has black hoses connected to both ends, which are coiled around a marker pen in the middle, forming a coil shape. This serves as the capillary tube for the air conditioner. Now he attaches the evaporators to the caps and cuts the blue and yellow hoses in the middle, inserting the blue hose into the 4-way connector, while the yellow hose connects to the condenser, and the other end connects to a second 4-way connector. A short tube is inserted into this 4-way connector and fixed to the outlet of the water pump. The other end of the condenser is connected to the second 4-way connector through a short tube. The capillary tube connects the first 4-way connector and the water pump, and a plug is used to seal an extra port on the 4-way connector. With that, all the piping connections are done. Finally, he connects the water pump to a power source, removes the valve from the air nozzle, uses a syringe to evacuate the air from the pipes, then injects butane through the air nozzle to act as a refrigerant. The small air conditioner is now complete. It's time to test its cooling effect. When powered on, a layer of frost instantly forms on the copper tube, showing that the air conditioner is working. The cooling effect is very fast. In no time, the temperature can drop to -20 degrees. You can't help but admire his craftsmanship and brilliant idea. So, out of 10, how many points would you give him? This man is definitely a genius. He filled plastic cups with sand, then poured cement mortar into the plastic cups with tile fragments. Since he later needed to place the sand-filled cups into these, each cup only needed to be filled halfway. After pouring, he submerged the sand-filled cups in a bucket to add weight, to prevent the cement from causing them to float. Then he placed each cup into the plastic molds, creating cement cups from them. Next, he arranged 3 plastic cups bonded with tape and removed the bottoms. Then he poured cement into these plastic cups to form 3 support legs. He also filled 3 more plastic cups with cement. To create cement support tubes, he filled 2 different sized cups with cement. To make a large and a small support tube, he placed a PVC pipe in the center of a tire and poured cement mortar inside. Each tire had a grid inside, which strengthened the structure of the cement. As the mortar filled the tire, he soon shaped it into a round disc. He continued by pouring mortar into a smaller tire. With his skilled craftsmanship, he poured in smoothed cement into each tire. Then he went to the backyard clearing and used tools to mark a circular line. He cleared the soil within the circle to the side, then hammered a steel bar at the center center of the pit. Using a string, he placed bricks around the steel bar, forming a circle. At this point, can you guess what he's making? If you guessed it, post in the comments to see if you're correct. Next, he took the cement cups he had made and placed them one by one on the wall, using cement to secure each cup to the wall top. Then he filled the gaps between the cups, molding the cement into rectangular blocks, filling in the gaps for structural stability and decorative effect. To strengthen the wall, he evenly coated and covered it with cement mortar. After smoothing the mortar, he placed a tile in the center of the circular pit and applied 3 layers of cement on the tile to secure 3 support legs. Then he sprinkled some dry cement into the pit, smoothing it out to level the surface. Next, he poured cement into the pit, which reinforced the structure and provided waterproofing. He then poured a layer of cement into the tire interior, placed a round tile in the tire center, and positioned a cylindrical cement column in the middle as a support. He moved to the smaller tire, similarly smoothing cement inside and placing a round tile. He applied cement to the top of the support legs and placed the tire on top to secure it. Then he coated the support column with cement and placed the medium-sized tire on top to secure it. Next, he applied cement to the support column's upper layer to secure the top layer. Once secured, he inserted a water pipe in the center, connecting it to a water pump. Finally, he applied a waterproof coating to the fish pond for decoration, and thus, a beautiful fish pond crafted from tires and plastic cups was complete. So what do you think of his creativity? Out of 10 points, how would you rate him? This man is absolutely a genius. He used a discarded water heater to make a multifunctional wood stove. First, he cleaned the inner tank and stood it upright, marking a line at 15 centimeters. Then marked one side of the taller section of the tank. Using a ruler, he drew a square pattern, and then cut it along the markings into 2 parts. He also cut out the square marked section. Next, on the other end of the tank, he drew a grid pattern, cutting along these marks to create an ash drop opening. Then he welded a square pipe to form an ash collector. Once that was complete, he created 4 metal plates and welded them together, attaching them to the square opening. This formed the firewood feeding port for the stove. Next, he welded on the stove door. Once the door was secured, he added a latch. Then he cut 4 short square pipes and 4 slightly smaller rectangular pipes, welding them to the bottom of the stove as legs. Afterward, he found an iron pot, placed it on top of the stove, marking around it, because he planned to cut out the bottom of the pot. He welded it tightly to the stove, making sure it was sealed and airtight. Inside the pot, he welded a mesh basket with rebar. It fit perfectly on top, for easier transport. He added handles on both sides of the stove. Lastly, he sprayed the whole wood stove with high-temperature rust-proof paint. And with that, the multifunctional wood stove made from a water heater was complete. Then he gathered some firewood to test it out. When the firewood inside was lit, he could place a pot on top to boil water or cook. So, what do you think of his creativity? Out of a score of 10, how much would you rate him? This man is absolutely a genius. He managed to restore a discarded headlight to its original state. First, he cut a piece of transparent acrylic, shaped it to match the headlight by trimming away the excess. Then, he hung the roughly shaped acrylic high, and began heating it evenly with a heat gun, carefully ensuring no uneven heating caused shrinkage or deformation. Once fully softened, he quickly pressed the acrylic onto the wrapped headlight for molding, using a damp towel to press continuously. He made it conform perfectly to the headlight's contours, shaping the acrylic into a precise match. After cooling and setting the shape, the material was ready, but the real restoration had just begun. The first step was to cut away the old headlight frame. He planned to use it as the base for the new cover, joining the parts with the classic glue and baking soda method. Under his skilled hands, the pieces were bonded and reinforced with heated wire embedded into the joints, forming a sturdy frame for the new headlight. Next, he placed the acrylic on the frame, drew an accurate outline for the cover, trimmed it further to achieve its final precise shape. After cutting, he applied wax to the surface, using a polishing machine to smooth and shine it, removing impurities and blemishes, making the surface sleek and transparent. Then, came a critical step, to restore the headlight's original look as much as possible. He hand-carved the frosted patterns on the new cover, using sandpaper to refine the 5 designs into a textured matte finish. He then assembled the cover and frame with glue and baking soda, completing a cohesive new headlight cover for installation. To ensure the joints looked seamless and elegant, he carefully shaved off the protrusions at the seams with a utility knife, meticulously refining the surface to make it smooth and even. After this, he coated the entire cover with wax, and gave it a final polish with a machine. Once polished, the newly restored headlight cover was as good as new. So, what do you think of his craftsmanship? Out of 10 points, how much would you rate him? This man is absolutely a genius. He managed to seamlessly connect hoses using just PVC pipes. First, he heated one end of the cut hose to soften it. Then, he slid the softened end onto a PVC pipe, used tap water to cool and set the shape. After it hardened, he removed the shaped hose, cut it in half with a saw. Next, he prepared another PVC pipe of the same size, marked lines 5 centimeters from both ends, and marked 4 points at the pipe's opening for alignment. Using these points, he extended lines to divide the pipe into 8 sections. He then cut out triangular portions, leaving the remaining sections intact. Once cut, he smoothed the rough edges, transforming the pipe into the shape shown in the video. This allowed two reducer fittings to fit perfectly together. At this point, the connection was almost complete. He inserted a smaller diameter PVC pipe into the hose, and assembled all three parts step by step. Once the assembly was done, it was ready for use. After confirming there were no issues with the connection, he turned on the tap. The extended hose worked perfectly, easily solving the problem of a hose being too short, with no risk of leaks or disconnections. So, what do you think of his creativity? Out of 10 points, how much would you rate him? This man is undoubtedly a genius. He drilled dozens of holes into the wall, then used wooden battens or straightedges as guides, making it easier to quickly fill with just the right amount of cement, ensuring it was scraped, smoothed, compacted, and pressed firmly. Starting from the corner and extending outward, he carefully laid a layer of tiles in a tight, orderly sequence, leaving a rectangular opening on one side. At the same time, steel bars were embedded into the reserved wall holes, crossbound with wires into a sturdy mesh. Next, wooden boards paired with beams were cleverly assembled below as support pillars, following the design shown in the video. He then stacked bricks vertically on both sides, ensuring the top aligned perfectly level with the wooden planks, before pouring cement and gravel concrete, with a thickness about 8 centimeters level with the wood. After letting it fully cure and harden over 5 days, the wooden boards, having served their purpose, were removed. Then he installed the required sink basin, carefully tiling the entire countertop and surrounding edges, with bright, glossy tiles, which instantly elevated its appearance. And with that, a simple, practical, and efficient DIY stove countertop was cleverly constructed to perfection. It's affordable, practical, and dirt-resistant. So what do you think of his creativity? Out of 10, how many points would you give him? This guy is definitely a genius. Since he was exhausted from biking to work every day, he decided to create a powered bike using a discarded flywheel. First, he crafted a steel shaft with gears and a pulley, and fixed it between two bearings. Then he positioned it on the rear seat rack for alignment, and attached the chain. But pedaling didn't engage the wheels directly, so he installed a pulley on the rear wheel, allowing a belt to connect it to the pulley on the steel shaft. This made it so that pedaling could drive the rear wheel forward. Once he got this setup working, he realized he needed to boost the flywheel sometimes, so he designed a power switch along the belt by attaching a few bearings to a bolt and welding it to the end of a slotted flat metal piece. Next, he welded a small triangular metal plate on the bike seat rack, which allowed him to mount the power switch in place. Afterwards, a pull switch allowed for easy control. This pull switch needed an angled piece of metal welded to the front handlebar for convenient access while riding. Once welded and connected by a steel wire to the switch, he achieved the desired effect. Next, he assembled the flywheel, but before installing it, he prepared a few bearing parts and placed 3 bearings onto the corners of a triangular plate with a large bearing. Once the flywheel was mounted, he took measurements, cut 3 metal tubes to equal lengths, and welded them into a triangle. Then he welded a round washer at each corner. Then he welded square metal pieces onto the rear bike frame, creating a support to secure the triangle in place. Finally, he added a spring between each bearing and washer. This reportedly could generate endless power, making the flywheel spin continuously, and so the inertia-powered bike was ready. But would it work? He eagerly pedaled to test it out. First, he spun up the flywheel to build up energy, then activated the pressure switch, and the flywheel powered the bike's wheels to spin, showing the flywheel's inertia could propel the bike forward. So now, on his uphill commute, he could charge the flywheel ahead of time, and engage the switch when he reached the slope, making climbing easy and smooth. On flat roads, he wouldn't even need to pedal. So what do you think of his invention? Out of 10, how would you rate it? They say that by attaching 2 copper-like springs to both ends of this ordinary terminal block, with this simple modification, you can create a super antenna that picks up dozens of channels. First, connect the inner conductor of the coaxial cable to the left side of the terminal block. Once installed, insert the coaxial cable's shielding layer into the right terminal and tighten it securely. After completing this step, wrap the connection points with electrical tape. Next, find a PVC water pipe. Drill a hole on the side just big enough for a wire, so the coaxial TV cable can be threaded through the pipe's opening. Then pull it out from the drilled hole. Once this setup is done, use a hot glue gun to fill the pipe opening with glue to firmly attach the terminal block vertically at the pipe's opening, so it acts as a support rod. Then, drip hot glue onto the center of an old CD. While it's still hot, press the support rod into place to form a stable base. Next, take a coaxial cable connector and unscrew it. Tighten its internal screw into the coaxial cable, and then secure it properly. At this point, a DIY antenna capable of receiving dozens of channels is complete. Many viewers in the previous video commented that their reception results varied when they tested it themselves. Some picked up more than a dozen channels while others got only 4 or 5. This is due to differences in signal strength, surrounding environment, and obstacles. Distance from the transmission tower and obstructions can all affect reception quality. If you're interested in trying out this homemade antenna, you can build one yourself. As long as your TV supports DTMV reception, you might be able to pick up dozens of TV channels. And who knows, you could end up saving a lot of money. How to make a rocket with sugar. First, Make the fuel, prepare an iron pot, and pour in some free mineral water. Heat it on low until it boils. Then take out an electronic scale. Place a cup on it and zero the scale. Today, we're only mixing 200 grams for testing. So pour 80 grams, which is 40% of the total. Pour it into the pot and stir slowly to dissolve. Next, take out potassium nitrate. Pour 120 grams into the cup, which is 60%. Also pour it into the pot and continue stirring. Now you can see the water has evaporated. The color has turned caramel. Next, find a paper tube. We only need 12 centimeters here. Then find a plastic bottle cap, because this plastic bottle cap fits perfectly into the paper tube. After placing it inside, glue it to secure it. Then pour the sugar and potassium nitrate mixture into the paper tube. Now find a 1.4 centimeters stainless steel pipe and insert it into the paper tube. Once it solidifies and dries, gently pull out the stainless steel pipe, shape it into a rocket form, and place a cotton thread in the middle hole. Make sure to test in an open area. You'll see that after ignition, the fuel inside the rocket generates immense energy, but it doesn't have enough thrust. It might be a ratio issue. Next, prepare 3 different ratios for testing. They are 75% to 25%, 70% to 30% and 65% to 35%. Follow the previous steps. You can see that the final products all have slightly different colors. To ensure the validity of the test, each rocket weighs about the same. Then use a digital scale to test their thrust. Fix the rocket with a plastic suction cup. This makes testing easier. First, test the 35% sugar and 65% potassium nitrate mix. The maximum thrust value for this ratio is 519 grams. Next, test the 30% sugar and 70% potassium nitrate mix. This one's maximum thrust surprisingly exceeds the previous one, reaching 715 grams. Finally, test the 25% sugar and 75% potassium nitrate mix. This one only gets 159 grams, so it seems that the 30% to 70% ratio works best. Let's use this to test for a successful launch. After ignition, step back. You'll see the rocket suddenly shoots into the sky. So what do you think of his invention? Out of 10 points, how many would you give him?